It's time to take it from the top.
From the top. Let's go. We have a special guest here today, our very own Erin Heintz, the General Counsel for Rochester's Wegmans Corporation. Welcome, Erin, today to 6 Minute Increments.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
So Erin and I have known each other for a long time. Beth has also known Erin for quite a while. But to the listeners out there, I think they would be fascinated to hear a little bit about how does one go about becoming GC of any business, much less Wegmans? Like, what's the path to doing that?
I don't know that there is a direct path. For me, the path was I started at a local firm, Woodsovia, which is where Brett and I met, and worked hard there for my first 5 years. Was recruited to Littler Mendelson locally, where I did labor and employment litigation. I think labor and employment is a field that naturally, translates to in-house work. So I was recruited by Rochester Regional to be their first in-house labor and employment lawyer. And I was there for just over 8 years and sort of rose through the ranks, did labor and employment specifically for 3 years, then was promoted to deputy general counsel, and then ultimately general counsel. How do you become a general counsel? I don't know the exact path. Mine was just keep your head down, work hard, and develop good relationships. The way that I ended up at Wegmans was someone that I had worked for a long time with at Rochester Regional, moved to Wegmans, and when they were looking for a succession plan for their general counsel, she happened upon a conversation about it and told them about me, and they asked me to come over and interview. So it wasn't planned. I never, back in 2006 when we started together, if you would have said to me, Erin, you're going to be the general counsel of Wegmans, I would have laughed at you, but here we are.
Right. What do you think is the biggest difference? Because I don't know that a lot of people understand what general counsel or in-house counsel is. And for people coming out of law school, like you and I, we've known each other a long time. I don't think a lot of people go into law school going, I'm going to be in-house counsel. What do you find are the differences between the two, good and bad?
I think, being in private firm life, I think is a great place to learn and to really understand the black and white nuts and bolts of the law. I think once you go in-house, the way I view the role, which is probably a little more progressive than some, is really you're the go-between between your outside counsel or, if you already know the black and white letter of the law and the business. So the way I conduct myself is, I try to understand as much as I can about the business, and so that I understand what is the upside for the business when they're asking me a question, right? And so that I can properly advise them on the risk. I think as a lawyer in private practice, you're definitely focused more on what is the law, not how do you get to the answer that the business needs to get to in the most, efficient way from a risk perspective. So I really view it as, you're in the middle of the black and white answer and what the business is trying to achieve. I think historically, people have viewed in-house legal departments as sort of the place of no, right? Because it's really easy to just
Same with
say,
HR too.
Exactly, right? It's really easy to say, oh, the law doesn't allow you to do that. But I think the art of being a good in-house counsel, general counsel, is to figure out how to get the business what they need in a way that doesn't put the company at unreasonable risk. But, I do think you have to be tolerant of some risk in my role. And I think that's sometimes what's hard for people transitioning from a firm where you're sort of taught to eliminate the risk and in-house.
Yeah, that's not always practical. I think that as a business side lawyer, I come closer to that very often and have to understand and help the clients get to yes, not just say no. That's
we frustrate our litigators in that regard.
Correct.
Yes. On the transactional side, we're just figuring out, as you said, the best way to get to the result you want.
And it's a
depending on your
negotiation.
tolerance for risk, it's not perfect,
right,
legally speaking, but it's good enough. And then the litigator's like, why'd you do that?
Yeah.
So it's interesting.
How do you find it now being in-house counsel, working with outside counsel? Like and Wegmans, you guys have a lot of in-house staff. I mean, you basically have your own firm within a firm. How do you experience, though, still working with outside counsel?
I really enjoy it. I view it as a partnership. I always joke with them and say that, my goal is to be the favorite client, which is a lot easier when you work at Wegmans. Everybody loves Wegmans.
Or you bring them donuts from Wegmans.
Yes. Or bring them food.
Everybody likes food.
Everybody likes food. But I really just try to be practical about it. And, I don't take an unreasonably hard line with my outside counsel when it really comes to anything. I think what's most important for me with my outside partnerships is that I really see that they're bringing people along in terms of a succession plan, because, you invest as an in-house lawyer, you invest a lot of time and energy with an outside resource, teaching them about the business, helping them understand what's important to us. And if they, it's wonderful if they're with you for a long time, but if they haven't trained someone behind them, it's a huge, loss for an in-house team of both historical knowledge and just of time to get someone else up to speed. So, I think a lot of companies have, restricted fees and said, I don't want more than one person working on the file. I have a sort of a different approach where I say, I expect you to have someone else on the file that if something were to happen could jump in quickly and could stand, in your place, because that's what we need as a company. I can't have, a hole, and, life happens to people. So
life happens.
Yes.
Unfortunately, sometimes it ends. That's never good.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned too the idea of balancing that business strategy. Where do you find that you're drawing that line? Like, how are you working with your business team to help them get to yes? What are some of the harder points of doing that?
I think the hardest part is making sure people understand that the lawyers are someone that you should have at the table from the beginning, as opposed to, the 11th hour, or God forbid, when something has already gone wrong. And so I think when I was at Rochester Regional, that was sort of a very traditional process that because it's so heavily regulated, the lawyers were at the table very early and helped shape some of the decisions from the beginning, which is easier. I think at Wegmans, there's been a transition over the last 2 years to doing more of that, and helping people understand that, if you decide you have a business objective and you've decided how you're going to solve the problem, and you're really at the 11th hour at the last stage, and then you come to legal department and we tell you, well, that just won't work. That is not helpful, because you've then spent 9 months doing something that we're telling you can't do. Whereas if you have us at the table from the beginning, we can understand the objective and help you achieve it in a more efficient way. So I think we're doing more of that at Wegmans in recent years.
I deal a lot with general counsel, and they will bring, as we're doing deals or transactions, their outside counsel. How do you find that it is, because you're balancing that in-house business side, but your outside counsel, to your point, they don't always. How do you find being stuck in between the two and balancing, getting the outside counsel to understand you need to get to yes too?
Yeah, I'm very direct about it. I think anybody who knows me or has worked with me is never ever confused about where I stand. So I'm very direct about what we're trying to achieve. And there are times that I will bring outside counsel inside to a meeting. Okay. It depends on the person and it depends on the topic, because I think, as I've onboarded younger lawyers from outside working for the company, one of the first things I tell them is, please do not send me a 5-page memo with citations. I will never use, if I am looking up your citations and double checking you, we have different problems. Mm-hmm. So, just helping people understand that when you come into a business meeting, it's not the 5-page memo speech. It's the abridged executive summary version. So, there are some attorneys that are better at doing that than others. And if they are, and I feel like, there's value add to bringing them in, I will. But most often I serve as sort of the go-between. Okay. I would say 90% of the time, especially at Wegmans. In my former role, where it was highly regulated, you would see more of that, because the business folks involved have a deep understanding of some of the regulation and want to understand the outside perspective as well.
Having now been at a major hospital system and now Wegmans, I mean, we try to always partner up the law with the business world. You sit in that unique intersection between the two. What things have you seen organizationally from big organizations that small businesses, back in the day when you worked in the private sector, never really got or grasped? Like, where do you see the difference of what large organizations have for infrastructure that small businesses don't?
It's interesting. I've been at a couple of big companies where sometimes you would think there would be more infrastructure. I had a small team at Rochester Regional, and I have a small team at Wegmans. I have 5 other lawyers on my team. I do think that, the just issue spotting and understanding and educating the business on the risks when you have an in-house team is just easier. I think where small businesses sometimes fall down is they don't have the resources or the relationship with an attorney that can serve as their sort of, traffic cop of legal issues, right? And so there are firms that will offer that service, almost like a general counsel, but not sitting in your business. And I think that's really where I see the most opportunity, because people have their head down and running their business. They don't even know how to spot a legal issue in some cases. So
till the cops knock on the door.
Right. So to be
the
proactive, FBI, I think you need a trusted relationship with someone that can help.
Right.
And I think that's where you see the biggest difference between larger companies and smaller, is because they have that resource.
How much of your day do you still have to dedicate to staying current on regulations, statutory things versus the balance, or turning to outside counsel, I guess, to keep you informed and educated?
I really rely a lot on my outside counsel and my team to do that. Of course, we all get all of the updates from all the different firms and the different specialties.
You love writing things.
Yes, it is very helpful. I do read those. And, I've spent most of my career focused on labor and employment. So if I go to a CLE and things like that, I do tend to focus in that area and keep pretty up to date on that. I mean, we have 54,000 employees at Wegmans. And, if you hear Danny talk about it, he says that we're a people company that sell food. So, the labor and employment, stuff in particular, I stay really close to. But I mostly rely on outside counsel. I think the best relationship I have with my outside counsel is when they are always looking around the corner for me and raising questions that I might not have even asked yet. I think that's where I feel the most value in those relationships.
Is there anything you miss about being on the outside world and looking back in and just issuing those 5-page memos to people, be like, hey, it's your problem?
I miss being in court. Okay. I miss trying cases. I definitely miss that. I miss the...
never miss that.
I miss the adrenaline. I miss, the late... It's as crazy as it sounds, the late nights and the pressure and drafting those briefs on issues of first impression, things like that. I really enjoyed doing that. I still have a piece of that when my outside counsel is trying a case or writing briefs. I still enjoy being involved in it, but I definitely miss, being in court.
For a law student who was thinking about, they may have it in their head that they want to go this route, is there anything that you would ever recommend as a mentoring kind of thing of where they should be spending their time? Take some more business classes, maybe?
Well, I talk to a lot of young people. There's a lot of young people that work at Wegmans that want to get into, that want to go to law school, want to become attorneys, and I spend a lot of time with them. And I basically tell them, don't underestimate the power of relationship building and the ability to talk to people, because I think that is sort of something that gets overlooked. You can be, really smart and really dialed in on a particular subject matter, but if you can't convince someone that doesn't understand anything about the law what you're saying, you will never survive in-house. And so sometimes, I think the basic skills around relationship building, communication, and taking the really complex and making it simple, I think that's a really pivotal skill to go in-house that is overlooked in your sort of legal training.
I'm surprised you haven't asked your normal notorious question yet.
Well, I've got a few notorious questions. So we're called 6-minute increments, and I'm always interested in the billing, the fee structures, all these things. So my first question is, in the firms you work with, are they transitioning to other fee structures besides billing hourly, or is it still pretty much hourly?
It's very traditional.
It's very
still.
traditional.
Mm-hmm.
And do you find, are any of the law firms or internally within your legal department, are you integrating AI into your workflows at all?
We are. AI is a really big focus for Wegmans, both in our business and with our outside partners. And so this year we've been, as a team, focusing on really, my legal team, focusing on, what do we think about AI? Where do we find it would be helpful, not helpful? One space that we're really diving into is contract review, because as you can imagine, in a company of our size, we have anything from, a $2,000 contract to, a $20 million contract. And so, how do you staff that? And how do you sort of put the guardrails in place where AI can help? And I think we found some good practices that we think we can really utilize that as an in-house team.
Do you think AI will reduce your need for outside counsel?
I think it will reduce the need for some of the historical doc review types of, I don't think it's never going to replace, in my view, the judgment and the trust. Right. So I view my outside counsel as a partner. And so whether they get the answer in, 3 hours from an associate on Lexis, or whether they get the answer in 3 minutes, I still trust them to make sure it's the answer. And so, do I think that the hours spent on some of this stuff should go down? Absolutely. But I don't think it will change my need for outside counsel in these specialties. I just think it's going to become hopefully more efficient.
Are you going to expect your outside partners to use AI?
We haven't required it yet, but I have told all of them I want to understand how they're going to use it, and I want to be a part of the discussion. I haven't banned it and I haven't required it, but I've told them I expect to be having conversations about it. So my team members have their own interactive relationships with outside counsel in their specialties. And so I've tasked them with understanding how it's going to be used, if they think it should be used more, having those conversations and sort of reporting back in. And some of that stuff is starting to come in now. And I've been impressed with how the firms are thinking about it and being proactive about it. And
Beth gives
careful.
out an award for who's leading the pack for most AI searches and things like that. She keeps track of it.
I'm really trying.
She's also patting herself on the back, but she keeps winning. I think she keeps track of the law.
So the firms you're working with are embracing it,
yes,
and are pursuing it.
Yes.
So Brett and I have spent a lifetime now billing our souls away at 6-minute increments. What's it? I can't imagine not recording every minute of my day, every day. What was that? Was it dizzying for you to start? Do you even remember that life anymore?
It was 15 years ago now that I stopped billing my time, but I can definitely
have nightmares.
Yeah. I vividly remember going in-house and for the first time not having to do that and just being a little bewildered about well, first of all, you're new at a company, and so you don't have a full plate of work on your first day anyway. But I remember my boss at the time calling me at 6 o'clock on my first day and saying you can't possibly have anything to do. What are you doing here? And I was sort of I don't know. I don't know what to do. What does one do now? And so I think it was more the shift in work-life balance going in-house initially. I think that quickly changed. I realized work-life balance is more of a me problem than a where I work problem. It's more of a lack of boundaries problem for me. So, I quickly, in healthcare, obviously running a legal department during COVID was not work-life balance, but it is a completely different way of thinking, but it seems like a lifetime ago that I tracked my time, and it's almost hard to remember now.
Yeah.
But I've always been someone that, my first boss in house always said, like, we will never track time, like over my dead body, we'll never track time. And I've always, kept that philosophy with my own team.
What drives you nuts about the bills you get from lawyers?
If
anything.
Well, yeah, no, there's a couple things.
Oh, she loves them.
I think, I'll talk about one of the things I love. Okay. I have a firm, one of the lawyers out of the Richmond area that I love to work with. And he is so good about bills every month. He sends a bill. He sends me a cover letter. He sends me a summary, short, quick executive summary. Hey, just as a reminder, here's what we worked on this month at a high level, and here's your bills. I find that super helpful, as opposed to, I am not somebody that says this should be not a 0.4, it should be a 0.2. I don't do that with my outside counsel. But I think that's a really good practice for somebody who's in-house, who's, reviewing a stack every month of bills that, are just daunting at times. What drives me crazy is if we've agreed to a rate or a discount and it doesn't show up on the bill. That drives me insane. And it drives me crazy to see like big blocks of time without an explanation. I don't care if...
You don't like 6 hours research?
Yeah, that's not for me, because, and it's probably harkens back to my days where I was like, no one would have let me write that down. Right. But yeah, those are the big things.
I still think of those older attorneys at Wadzovia back in the day, and they were like, this is more art than science.
Yeah.
And you're going to be billing this. They've got to read it and actually think that you did something worth paying for.
Exactly.
It is hard to keep track of time. But,
it is. It's hard. And I, again, I view it as a partnership. I do not nickel and dime my outside counsel, but I also expect them, to have the same respect for me and not have some massive time entry that, has no explanation or is clearly more time than should be spent on the issue.
Well, I don't want to eat up too much of your time and day, but we do have to at least ask this one question. What is your favorite Wegmans product at this point?
Oh.
Is it the water? I mean, I
do love the water. There's so many good products all the time. It really depends on sort of, like, my favorite just to sit and eat is the creme de bourgogne brie, which is like this in the little white circular and you cut off the top with crostini. Like, that's my favorite Wegmans product because cheese is my absolute favorite food.
Their cheese selection is outstanding.
But you just working in this company, we had a leadership meeting yesterday, and we were talking about educating our people in our new markets about what goes into all these products. Like, you cannot imagine the amount of time and effort that goes into each one of these products to make sure it has all the right things in it, to make sure that it tastes, correct, that it's at the right price point, that the branding and the pictures on the bottles are right. It's really, really impressive. I've been a long time customer, obviously, but sort of seeing the other side of it has been really fun.
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine, too, the business side. It's fun to see that sometimes lawyers aren't the smartest people in the room. There's a lot of people out there who are pretty smart.
You learn that really quick when you go in-house. That is for sure.
I mean, I've always appreciated that as I get to work with a lot of companies and businesses and see how they function. And it is very different than law firm life very often. But I get that perspective, and they're pretty smart over there.
Yeah, I think that's what I enjoy most about my job is really being involved in the business, being at the table with the leadership team.
Didn't you have to do a little tour of duty through a store?
I did.
Which store?
I worked my first 2 weeks. I worked in the Penfield store, and I rotated through all the different departments, including cheese. In fact, when I came home that night, my husband told me, you are not going to just work at the cheese counter. This is not what we're doing, because I came home with all this extra cheese. But yeah, I stocked jelly beans. I made pizzas. I made sushi. I worked in the pharmacy. I didn't do any actual work, but I observed the pharmacy. It's just an amazing, amazing business, and our people are just, wonderful. And it's it's people always ask me, what's the secret sauce? What's the special thing about Wegmans that makes the employees as happy as they are and as helpful as they are? And I always tell everybody that, the values are everywhere. And the family, the Wegman family, truly believes in them. If you want to impress a Wegman family member, you don't stop them in a store and talk to them about the bottom line. You talk to them about a person that you've helped develop their career. If you helped move them, what they call it, learn and grow, that's what makes them happy. That's what they care most about. And I think it flows through the whole organization. They care about the right things. They put their money where their mouth is. They take care of their employees. So it's really a special thing to be a part of.
Well, I really appreciate your time, Erin, for
Yes.
you being here and sharing some insight with us and everybody else. And I will end by saying you and Bridget Kemmer are the only two summer associates I've ever known that I gave a top ranking to.
Aw,
So,
thank
all
you.
these years, it's just Erin and Bridget.
Thank you.
There you go.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.